In 1968, a scientist built paradise and killed everything inside it. 8 mice. Perfect temperature, unlimited food, unlimited water. No predators, no disease, no danger of any single kind. 5 years later, every single one of them was dead, and not one death had a cause a doctor could write on a death certificate. But before you assume you already know this story, let me tell you the part that nobody tells you. The part that when you hear it will make you look at your own life completely differently. The part that Calhoun himself spent the rest of his career desperately trying to prevent because he believed it was coming for us next. His name was John B. Calhoun, an ethologist at the National Institutes of Health. He was not chasing a career. He was chasing one single obsessive question that had consumed him for 2 decades. What happens to a society when nothing is hard anymore? He had been running versions of this experiment since 1947. 24 of them, one after another. Each one a slightly different paradise with no scarcity, and no predators and no escape. And in every single one of them, the pattern was identical. Population explosion, violence, withdrawal, collapse, extinction. 24 times, the same result. Therefore, Universe 25 was meant to be the final version. The clean experiment so precisely controlled that nobody in the world could argue with what it showed. A 9-foot square enclosure, walk-up apartments stacked along every wall, 256 nesting boxes, food hoppers that never emptied, water that never ran dry, designed to house 3,800 mice comfortably. On July 9, 1968, he placed 8 mice inside and sealed the lid. For the first 104 days, almost nothing happened. The mice explored, established social order, built a functioning community. Then the litters arrived and the population began to double every 55 days. By day 315, there were 620 animals living inside Universe 25. Still far below capacity. Still enough of everything. But this is the moment everything started coming apart, and it had nothing to do with overcrowding. The enclosure never filled up. At its absolute peak, the population reached 2,200 mice in a space designed for 3,800. There was never a resource shortage. Never a space shortage. Not once. The collapse had nothing to do with too many bodies and everything to do with this. In any functioning community, there are only so many roles available. Leader, protector, provider, nurturer. The mice who arrived on day 1 claimed those roles, built identities around them, knew who they were and why the colony needed them. But the mice born inside Universe 25 arrived into a world where every role was already taken. The food was there. The space was there. The one thing that was not there was a reason to exist as a participant rather than a passenger. Therefore, Calhoun named it precisely the behavioral sink, the point at which behavior stops serving survival and begins consuming itself. The dominant males became violent without purpose, not to defend anything real, simply violent, randomly. Against females, against juveniles, against mice who posed no threat. A second group appeared simultaneously, frantic, indiscriminate, forcing themselves into defended nests, skipping every courtship ritual the species had followed for thousands of generations. They had nowhere to direct the biological drive that was designed to build something. Therefore, it became destructive. And the females who were still trying to raise pups began to fail in ways never recorded in the history of rodent science. The mothers found themselves defending alone while still nursing. The stress pushed them past a threshold evolution had never prepared them to cross. They abandoned their pups. Some stopped recognizing which pups were theirs at all. In the worst pockets of Universe, 25 fewer than 1 in 20 newborn mice survived a weaning. But the group Calhoun found most disturbing was neither of these. They were the ones who had withdrawn completely. They did not fight. They did not mate. They did not engage in any social structure whatsoever. They ate. They slept. They groomed themselves obsessively. Hour after hour. Their coats were immaculate. Their bodies physically perfect. They bore none of the wounds of the mice who had thrown themselves into the chaos. They had looked at the world available to them and found it offered nothing worth engaging with. So they disengaged. Not from injury, not from illness. Completely, permanently, voluntarily. Calhoun named them the beautiful ones. On day 560, the population peaked at 2,200. It would never go higher. On day 920, the last conception inside Universe 25 occurred. The food dispensers still full, the water still running. Everything a mouse could ever need still present in perfect abundance. It did not matter. On May 23, 1973, the last mouse in Universe 25 died. He wrote that the mice had experienced two deaths. The first was the death of the spirit. The second was the death of the body. The first happened years before the second, but when Calhoun published his findings, the world ran immediately with the wrong reading. Comfort kills, abundance kills. The image of the beautiful ones quietly going extinct became one of the most cited metaphors of the 20th century. Therefore, here is Calhoun's actual conclusion that almost nobody read. The killer was not comfort. The killer was the disappearance of meaningful roles. The food never ran out. The water never ran out. What ran out was something nobody had thought to include in paradise to begin with: necessity, purpose, the specific feeling of being the one thing this particular moment required. But here is the part that changes everything. Calhoun was not a doomer. He spent the years after Universe 25 not predicting collapse, but trying to prevent it. He believed humans could choose differently than the mice, because mice cannot imagine a role that does not yet exist. When the existing roles are filled and nothing is required of them, they have nowhere left to go. But a human being can create necessity where none existed. Every piece of art ever made. Every problem solved that nobody had named yet. Every child raised with intention in a world that made raising children optional. These are roles that did not exist until someone decided they were necessary. Calhoun called this the only exit from Universe 25. Therefore, look at what we are actually doing right now. South Korea's fertility rate fell to 0.72 in 2023, the lowest ever recorded in any nation in human history. In Japan, over 1 million people are Hikikomori, withdrawn from all social participation, not from poverty, but because the world stopped asking anything of them. The U.S. Surgeon General declared loneliness a public health epidemic in 2023. And an entire generation is spending more hours in digital environments that provide stimulation without requiring contribution. Stimulation without requiring contribution. Say that again slowly. The food dispenser. Still full, still running. And somewhere above you in the apartments, the beautiful ones are grooming themselves? He never found an enclosure where abundance alone was sufficient. He found only one variable that changed the outcome. Something to do that mattered. Something the world needed that only you were positioned to give. Something that would stop existing if you withdrew from it. Not happiness, not comfort. A role. Specific to you. Irreplaceable. The last mouse in Universe 25 died with a perfect coat. It had never fought for anything. It had never built anything. It had never been needed for anything. It had simply remained in a world that provided everything and asked nothing, until the world ran out of mice to provide for. The question is not whether the food dispensers are full. The question is what you are going to do that the world cannot afford to lose. Because the behavioral sink does not wait for you to notice it. It begins the moment you decide nothing here requires you specifically. The mice had no choice about that. Every second you spend watching this video suggests that you still do.